Alrighty, how y'all doing? I'm just finally glad that I could get back here and get to my teachings again here, because my days have been so busy lately. It's hard to keep up, and I'm sure you are well aware of that. You're probably going through the same things that I'm going through. But tonight I want to share with you Jesus' secret message. And for you guys, in order to understand the New Testament and Jesus' message, you first got to know the distinction between the conscious mind and the bicameal mind. And with that knowledge, then Jesus' message becomes crystal clear. So for an introduction and a definition of the two minds, we're going to take a look here at the award-winning article on consciousness, the end of authority. The significance of the two ways of thinking is clearly defined. This article here that I'm going to share a little bit was in response to a book, The Origin of Consciousness in the Breakdown of the Bicameal Mind. Now, consciousness is a new and modern way of thinking that involves an understanding of the right hemisphere of the brain versus the left hemisphere. Okay? Now, ancient man was bicameal, not conscious. Bicameal man used both sides of his brain, but in a different way than we do today. The right hemisphere is our survival mechanism, and that's where it reacts automatically to sights and sounds and emotions. Now, faced with dangerous situations, our right hemisphere allows us to react instantaneously, totally immersed in the here and now. It also allows us to recognize the overall picture, to grasp the larger perspective. This function can be seen as necessary for survival in the early man when out hunting or being able to find his way home. Now, it is also responsible for some of our most creative insights. It is the function of putting all the pieces together into an overall larger picture or puzzle picture. However, our right hemisphere has a major flaw as far as consciousness is concerned. It has no judgmental ability. Bicameal man divided and lived by his natural, highly intelligent animal mind. But the animal mind has no concept of justice, of fairness, or even compassion. So bicameal man lived in social codes of conduct necessary for people to live harmoniously in a society. And like Moses' 10 Commandments that were actually given to him by God is an example of the code of conduct given by an authority figure for the Hebrew nation to follow. Now notice that all 10 commands relate to objective behavior, okay? There is no inner reason given as to why these commands are necessary. Even though to us it is self-evident why these commands are valid, it was not until the latter prophets, and especially with Jesus, that the inner reasons for this behavior were known. Okay? Now, bicameal man lacked introspection and could not know for himself what was moral or immoral. This explains many of the mysteries of the Old Testament. When a tribe favored by God would conquer another tribe, kill the men while enslaving the women and children and taking all their goods, cattle, sheep, and everything that they virtually owned, there was no concept of judgment or compassion or wrongdoing on bicameal, on the bicameal mind man's part. And when we read these stories today, we cannot reconcile that kind of behavior with God's condolence. In light of the bicameal mind, however, these actions become clear. There is no blame. Bicameal man felt emotions strongly, just as we see in nature when a mother lion fiercely protects her young. A major factor in becoming conscious and understanding Jesus' ministry is introspection. Not just feeling emotions as all animals do and reacting automatically to those emotions, but understanding the emotions. Without understanding emotions, no concept of judgment or justice or compassion could emerge. Now, the interaction of the feeling right hemisphere with the rational objective left hemisphere allows consciousness to emerge. Okay, so that's how they can emerge into consciousness. Just what is consciousness? Can anybody out there tell me what it is? Well, one chief factor is the ability to be objective, to put aside your emotions and weigh a situation honestly and fairly. A feature of the bicarmeal man, he could not do it. Couldn't do it. With this ability to be objective, a man can think in terms of the past and the future, not just in the present. In the here and now, as the right hemisphere does with the ability, a man can think in terms of changing his behavior. This is why Jesus emphasized forgiveness and compassion as strongly as he did. The world we live in is a reflection of who we are inwardly as individuals. Pretty sad, huh? This world we're living in today is not a very good reflection. And unfortunately, it's the truth of who and what we are as individuals in the inside. And that is why it's so important that we allow Jesus to cleanse us. And we'll get into more of that down the road too. But our businesses, our schools, our governments are all run by individuals and the laws and traditions that we believe in or allow to exist to determine our outer conditions. It is only as we understand ourselves, what is good for us and what is bad for us, that we can put forth the right actions for a good life. And we also extend that same privilege to others. That introspection, that getting in touch with and understanding our own emotions leads to the consciousness and awareness of what is moral, good, and right. That process lies at the heart of Jesus' message. And through this route, a surprise emerges. Jesus' call to the weary, the suffering, the lonely was a constant theme throughout his ministry. For those who are unhappy in some way are the most likely to introspect. Also, following his example with the difficult trials he had to face is a way toward introspection, a major route to consciousness and the knowledge and wisdom of the kingdom of God. What are we doing for time here? Okay, we're getting close. We're going to wrap this one up pretty quick, and then we'll have to go on to the next segment. Because unfortunately the segments here can only be 10 minutes, so it goes by pretty fast. But getting back to consciousness, consciousness was developed about 3,000 years ago. As societies became more and more complex, the bicarmeal mind became inadequate to cope. This new way of thinking coincides roughly with the rule of King David in the Old Testament. Moses lived in the 13th century BC, which puts Abraham, the father of the Hebrew nation, even earlier. Thus, the earlier books of the Bible are stories of bicarmeal men, of those who lived by codes of conduct handed down to them by authority figures. The Old Testament prophets give a vivid picture of the awakening of consciousness in man with the culmination in Jesus' ministry. There are two major stages to consciousness, to becoming self-aware. The first stage has to do with ethics and moral behavior. And this requires complete honesty. In following Jesus' example, he said, "You must die and be reborn." This is a metaphor, of course, but you must die to the old ways of thinking which keep you locked in bondage to tradition. Through introspection and examination, you come to the realization, or to realize that contrary to church doctrines and religious beliefs, you must act in your own best interest, put yourself first, and have constructive desires and have a healthy concept of your own self-worth. Okay, so it's very important to do that. Where are we on time here? Oh yeah, she's coming right down to the last 30 seconds. Okay, now, religious teachings and beliefs handed down to us say that we must be selfish. Or selfless, I'm sorry. We must be selfless. Get rid of the ego. Let go of desire and put others first. By trying to act